Jessica. You know what I'm saying? Jessica was the reason why those kids lost their life, because she locked the door on those kids running down the step. You understand? You could see her name in a news article, but they didn't mention nothing about her taking place, but they try to put Heavy D, God bless the dead, out there and they put Puff out there. You know what I'm saying? She should have been the main one, because she is the one who locked the door on the kids. You understand? She is the one who locked the door on the kids, and all those kids.
Gene Deal didn't just talk. He cracked the whole conversation wide open. As soon as clips of his latest interview started circulating, the internet lit up, because this wasn't some random commentator. This was a former Bad Boy security executive, someone who was physically present during the label's wildest years, stepping forward and saying parts of the story were quietly buried. According to sources close to the situation, Gene Deal claims the documentary that shook the culture was never the full version, and that certain moments were allegedly trimmed before the public ever saw them.
What I feel about the documentary, they left a whole lot of key things out. If they was gonna do something and they gonna say in the reckoning of Sean Combs, the reckoning, or Diddy, the reckoning, and stuff like that, it should have been a lot of people that we lost because of him. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't only Big, it wasn't only Tupac, you understand? For the atmosphere that he put those kids in. You got a guy named Anthony Wolf Jones, who was from Bad Boy, from its conception as doing security and being one of the financiers of Puff having to have some money to keep Big and Craig Mack around before he got to Clyde Davis.
The timing is no accident either. With public pressure mounting, lawsuits floating in the background, and more industry figures distancing themselves, Gene Deal reportedly felt it was the right moment to speak up. He allegedly suggested that raw footage existed showing behind-the-scenes behavior, internal conversations, and early warnings that never made the final cut. That alone sent fans into detective mode, replaying scenes, pausing frames, and asking why certain timelines felt incomplete. According to people familiar with the production, Gene Deal claims he personally flagged moments he believed should have stayed in, including testimonies from former insiders who allegedly described power plays, intimidation tactics, and internal silencing. These sections were either shortened, blurred, or removed altogether before release. That immediately raised eyebrows because the documentary was marketed as uncensored and unfiltered.
I want to put her on blast because she was telling me, she was saying to me that what I was asking for was crazy and they wasn't spending money like that. I'm talking about you got footage, you got clothing, I was doing footage, I had pictures, all the stuff that I had, you could figure out a way to pay a brother and stuff like that. And then I was telling her about some prices that I've already received, and I had the invoices to show it. And then she was calling me like I was lying. I was like, yo, who do you think you talking to? You know what I'm saying? And she was talking about, there's no way nobody paid. Nobody what? I say, first of all you people come with these documentaries and stuff, the first thing you tell me, y'all tell these people out here that y'all don't pay, and y'all pay. If you can make a picture look like $10,000, $15,000, you know what I'm saying? You can sit here and tell me that you're gonna pay me for my time sitting right down here with y'all. You understand? So then, one thing led to another, and I was like, all right, well then, F you, I spoke to 50, and then she said 50, and this is exact words that came out her mouth. 50 does not determine what goes in and goes out of this documentary.
Industry insiders claim Gene Deal isn't just chasing attention. He's been sitting on this information for years, watching narratives get shaped without his voice included. Now that the spotlight is back on the Bad Boy era, sources claim he saw an opening to finally speak his truth, especially with public opinion already shifting fast. The streets caught it immediately. Fans started saying the documentary suddenly made sense, why certain names were missing, why certain stories felt rushed, and why some emotional beats cut away too quickly. Gene Deal believes the public didn't get the full picture, and now that belief is fueling a whole new wave of scrutiny. One thing's clear from the jump. This wasn't just another interview. This was a pressure release, and once it popped, there was no stuffing it back in the bottle. The spotlight quickly shifted from Gene Deal to 50 Cent, and not in a quiet way. Almost immediately, fans began questioning how much influence 50 allegedly had over the final cut of the documentary. According to industry sources, 50 wasn't just an executive name on the project. He reportedly had strong creative oversight, final approvals, and veto power over sensitive segments. Sources close to production claim that certain scenes were debated heavily behind closed doors.
That footage of Diddy.
I figure most journalists would not disclose their sources.
Does he know y'all have this in the doc?
I would doubt he knows.
So when this airs, that'll be the first time that his legal team, Diddy, that everybody knows that this footage is now seeing the light of day.
Gene Deal allegedly suggested that moments involving early internal warnings and uncomfortable testimonies were toned down because they risked opening new legal doors. If true, that would mean the documentary wasn't just storytelling, it was damage control. People familiar with the situation say 50's camp has stayed careful with public responses, never fully denying the edits but also never confirming them. That silence alone fueled speculation. Some fans believe the edits were strategic, protecting the project's reach while still delivering shock value. Gene Deal reportedly hinted that footage involving power dynamics, financial pressure, and internal fear was either shortened or left out entirely. Sources claim this footage would have changed the tone from expose to industry indictment, and that kind of shift carries serious consequences. Meanwhile, insiders say 50's brand thrives on control, precision, and calculated moves. From music to TV, nothing gets released unless it fits the playbook. That's why fans now question whether this documentary was about exposing truth or managing it. Social media turned ruthless. Clips comparing early trailers to final scenes started trending, with users pointing out missing dialogue, cut reactions, and awkward transitions. Gene Deal noticed the same things and felt validated watching fans connect the dots in real time. Whether intentional or not, the perception is now locked in, that something was left on the cutting room floor and people want to know exactly what.
Seen that the documentary, the 50 Cent
No, I
documentary
haven't seen it yet.
for Diddy?
I haven't seen it.
Oh man, you working
Everybody
hard.
telling me you got to see it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
Part of me don't want to see it
You probably don't.
because it's all skewed, man. Like when you put stuff together, you create whatever narratives you want to, and at the end of the day, everybody being programmed. You know, right now the man's serving time.
Right.
You know he went before the court. The court said this, and everything is God. But God said this is what he got to do. He got to do 5 years in pen. Let him do his 5 years.
Gene Deal's words hit differently because of his history. This wasn't a late arrival jumping into drama. This was someone who stood guard during the most volatile moments of the bad boy era. According to sources, Gene Deal witnessed power up close, loyalty tests, and the consequences of crossing lines. People close to the situation say Gene Deal has long felt erased from the official story. He allegedly watched documentaries, interviews, and retrospectives roll out without his perspective included. That silence built frustration over time, and now it's spilling out. Gene Deal believes the public image never matched the private reality. He reportedly claims there were early red flags, internal conflicts, and moments where people wanted to speak but feared retaliation. If true, that changes how the entire era is remembered. Insiders say Gene Deal isn't trying to be a hero, he's trying to be heard. Sources claim he's tired of watching sanitized versions of history dominate platforms, while first-hand accounts get sidelined. That's why his comments hit like a brick. Fans immediately revisited old clips, interviews, and statements with new eyes. Suddenly, certain pauses, deflections, and contradictions stood out. According to sources, Gene Deal has been contacted by multiple media outlets since the leak, all wanting deeper details. That alone suggests this story isn't dying anytime soon. The culture shifted fast.
He said, I want to put her on blast because she was telling me, she was saying to me that what I was asking for was crazy and they wasn't spending money like that. I'm talking about you got footage, you got clothing, I was doing footage, I had pictures, all the stuff that I had, you could figure out a way to pay a brother and stuff like that. And then I was telling her about some prices that I've already received and I had the invoices to show it. And then she was calling me like I was lying. I'm like, yo, who do you think you talking to? You know what I'm saying? And she was talking about, there's no way nobody paid. Nobody what? I say, first of all you people come with these documentaries and stuff, the first thing you tell me, y'all tell these people out here that y'all don't pay, and y'all pay. If you can make a picture look like $10,000, $15,000, you know what I'm saying? You can sit here and tell me that you're gonna pay me for my time sitting right down here with y'all. You understand? So then, one thing led to another, and I was like, all right, well then, F you, I spoke to 50, and then she said 50, and this is exact words that came out her mouth. 50 does not determine what goes in and goes out of this documentary.
What was once a documentary moment has turned into a broader conversation about who controls history, who edits truth, and who decides what the public is allowed to see. Behind the scenes, the industry isn't calm at all. Executives, producers, and legal teams are allegedly rewatching the documentary with fresh eyes. The question isn't whether edits happened, it's whether more people will now speak up. According to insiders, some former Bad Boy affiliates have privately reached out to Gene Deal, either supporting his claims or warning him to tread carefully. That alone suggests nerves are being hit. Sources claim legal departments hate moments like this because public pressure can reopen old files. Once narratives shift, investigations follow. That's why silence from certain camps feels loud. Streaming platforms are reportedly watching engagement spike again. Clips referencing Gene Deal's claims are pulling massive views. This renewed interest could trigger demand for extended cuts or follow-up releases. Fans are loud, persistent, and relentless. They want receipts, timestamps, and raw footage. The appetite for uncut truth has never been higher. This isn't just about one documentary anymore. This has become a test of credibility for music documentaries as a whole. If people believe edits hide truth, trust gets shattered. Every move from here matters. A response, a denial, or even another silence could change the direction of the storm. The conversation has officially moved past interviews and into evidence mode. The streets aren't asking if things were cut anymore. They're asking where the footage is.
Jessica, you know what I'm saying? Jessica was the reason why those kids lost their life, because she locked the door on those kids running down the step. You understand? You could see her name in a news article, but they didn't mention nothing about her taking place, but they try to put Heavy D, God bless the dead, out there and they put Puff out there. You know what I'm saying? She should have been the main one because she is the one who locked the door on the kids. You understand? She is the one who locked the door on the kids, and all those kids.
According to people familiar with the situation, multiple hard drives, backups, and raw interview files exist that never made the final export. That detail alone has fans calling for an uncut release, even if it never hits a major platform. Sources close to post-production claim that early assembly cuts were longer, darker, and far less polished. Those versions allegedly included extended exchanges, uncomfortable silences, and reactions that were later trimmed to keep the pace tight and the messaging controlled. If that's true, then the story viewers saw wasn't the full story. It was the approved one. Industry insiders say there's now internal debate about whether releasing raw material would help or hurt. On one side, transparency could restore trust. On the other, it could open doors nobody wants reopened. That tension explains why nobody is rushing to confirm or deny Gene Deal's claims outright. Sources also say independent journalists and content creators are now filing requests, digging through archives, and chasing former crew members for context. That kind of heat doesn't cool off. It spreads. Once people believe something is hidden, every frame becomes suspicious. Even more telling, sources claim that some streaming executives are quietly monitoring public reaction to see if demand justifies a follow-up project, not a sequel, a correction. That idea alone shows how much the narrative has shifted. At this point, the footage isn't just content, it's leverage. Whoever controls it controls the next chapter of this story. The silence around this situation is officially breaking, and it's happening behind the scenes faster than the public realizes. What started as Gene Deal speaking up has now turned into quiet movement across the industry, with former employees, assistants, security staff, and third-party contractors allegedly reaching out to journalists, bloggers, and independent creators. This isn't loud yet, but it's real, and it's building momentum. Sources close to multiple media outlets claim inboxes are filling up with off-the-record messages. People aren't ready to go on camera, but they are willing to confirm timelines, verify behavior patterns, and point towards specific moments that were never explored publicly. That alone suggests Gene Deal didn't come out of nowhere. He cracked the door open. Insiders say many of these individuals stayed quiet for years because speaking up meant career suicide. Bad Boy's shadow was long and the industry protected its own. But now, that protection doesn't feel solid anymore. Power shifts make people brave, and this shift is happening in real time. There's also talk that legal teams are paying close attention. Sources claim that once conversations move from opinions to omissions, the stakes change completely. If footage was intentionally withheld, altered, or framed to protect certain narratives, that opens questions nobody wants to answer publicly. Streaming platforms are nervous, not because of what's been released, but because of what might be released next. The fear isn't backlash, it's credibility. Once audiences believe a documentary left out key truth, every future project from that space gets side-eyed. Meanwhile, fans are organizing their own timelines online. Clips, interviews, old photos, and past statements are being stitched together to spot inconsistencies. That crowdsourced investigation has become powerful, and it's already uncovered contradictions that weren't obvious before. What makes this moment dangerous is speed. Information moves faster than damage control. By the time statements get drafted, narratives are already set. That's why silence right now feels louder than denial. This chapter isn't about one documentary anymore. It's about who controlled the story for decades and who no longer can. Once that control slips, it never fully returns. And if more insiders decide the risk is worth it, this won't end with talk, it'll end with receipts.